We will travel now from Italy to Ireland, and very pleased to be welcoming a delegation of friends of the Iranian resistance, including some speakers who have been very vocal in their support of the NCRI. Senator Gerry Horkan and Vice Chairman of the Fine Gael party, Jean-Paul Phelan. Let's give them a warm welcome.
Joseph coming? Very good. Oh, very good. I think it's even better. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, Madame Rajavi, our friends in Ashraf 3 who no doubt are joining us, and those joining online from all around the world. So you can see I have our delegation with us. We have Deputy Jean-Paul Phelan, Senator Gerry Horkan, Senator Joe Riley, and we're joined by the wives of both Deputy Phelan and Senator Joe Riley, and you see the new addition as well on stage for the first time. Who seems to be more, who I think is more relaxed on the stage than any of the rest of us. So. And it's wonderful to be back in Paris once again with so many friends, so many colleagues, all expressing our hopes and desires for a free Iran very, very soon. And I think my first year here was either 2016 or 2017, soon after I became a parliamentarian. We were over in Veal Point at a much larger venue, but certainly a very similar format. And it's great to see so many people still committed to a free, democratic, secular Iran. Last Friday, the people of Iran struck another blow against the regime by abstaining in huge numbers from the so-called election. They have declared no to the regime, no to dictatorship, yes to regime change, and yes to a democratic republic. A huge percentage of the electorate refused to participate in the sham election, where all candidates were screened in advance by the regime, and indeed many that actually did turn up spoilt their vote. The lowest turnout since 1979, the lowest turnout since the revolution in 1979. No real choice was being offered to the people in Iran. We know that everybody was screened in advance, and the West can no longer ignore this reality. We want to see Iran as a democratic country. We live in democracies, and we want to see the wonderful people of Iran being able to live in a democracy. This nationwide boycott, organised by the resistance units of the NCRI, demonstrates that regime change must be central to the strategy against the current government in Iran. Critics argue against Western involvement in regime change, citing past failures in the Middle East. However, they overlook two major facts. Firstly, it's the Iranian regime itself that, through its destabilising activities, made many of these Middle Eastern countries failed states. And secondly, the Iranian people, led by opposition leader Mrs. Maryam Rajavi, have repeatedly emphasised that overthrowing the regime and establishing a democratic republic is their responsibility. They are shouldering that responsibility. Look at the last 2 years of growing protests, 2 rounds of nationwide boycotts, and the expanding NCRI resistance units. These activities will only increase, a fact even the regime acknowledges despite its best efforts. What these critics seem to want is to continue the failed policy, as we've heard many times over the last 2 days, of appeasement, showing the regime we do not seek its overthrow in hopes that Tehran will abandon its terrorism and human rights violations. We know that bullies don't react to appeasement. Bullies do not react in that way. They will keep attacking and keep attacking and keep attacking, and we need to realise that. History tells us that appeasing dictators never works, and we must not forget that terrorism and repression is in the Iranian regime's DNA. All over the Middle East and beyond, the reach of the Iranian regime is obvious, promoting terrorism and conflict in Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, and of course its involvement in funding Hamas in the tragic conflict between Israel and Palestine. It reaches into Europe too, providing drones to Russia to aid them in their illegal, appalling invasion of Ukraine. and it has also caused the mass migration of millions fleeing countries it is involved with to Europe and elsewhere. History shows us that an idea whose time has come is unstoppable. We made references yesterday to the Berlin Wall. It wasn't coming down, and then it did. That idea is a democratic, secular republic in Iran, and the West must stand with the Iranian people to effectively counter the threat that is the current regime. I am delighted to be joined by colleagues here and to be able to announce that an overall majority of all of my colleagues in the Irish Senate, across all parties and none, and over 24 of our colleagues in the Dáil are backing a statement on Iran that calls on the international community to support freedom and resistance in Iran for global peace and security. And indeed, we gave a copy of all those signatures earlier to Madame Rajavi on stage a few moments ago. In our statement, as I said, was endorsed by a majority of senators in Ireland, we put forward 5 simple, necessary recommendations that got the support of the majority. 1. We called for the perpetrators of the 1988 massacre, where over 30,000 were killed, to be held accountable for ongoing crimes against humanity. Secondly, we urge all governments to support the NCRI President-elect Maryam Rajavi's 10-point plan, which was outlined many times over the course of the last 2 days, for a democratic republic based on the separation of religion and state and gender equality. Very, very important to all of us. Thirdly, we strongly condemn the Iranian regime's actions against Iranian dissidents in Ashraf 3, where I have been before, and we welcome to all of those who I'm sure are joining us and watching from there. And we reaffirm their rights under the 1951 Geneva Convention and the European Convention on Human Rights. Fourthly, the free world must recognise the right of the Iranian people to rise up and the right of the PMI resistance units to confront the IRGC, as the Iranian regime has blocked all political avenues for change. And finally, fifthly, we strongly condemn the Iranian regime's destructive role in the Middle East and indeed beyond, and its belligerent policies, and call for the terrorist designation of the IRGC, as Canada has done, and the implementation of oil sanctions against Iran. The people of Iran deserve a fully democratic, secular system where they can choose who they want to lead them, they can elect them, and they can elect others to replace them when they don't like what they're at. Led by the NCRI and Mrs Rajavi, they are showing great courage and resilience and are making great personal sacrifices to secure a free, democratic Iran. And indeed, I want to thank you, Madame Rajavi, and all of the supporters of the NCRI and all those people working on all you do. These events look seamless, they appear that they just happen, but it's all of a sudden, it doesn't happen by accident. So well done to everyone involved. The world must stand with the NCRI. We will stand with them as they continue on their journey to a free, democratic, peaceful Iran, and we look forward to being able to sometime go and visit Tehran as a free, independent, democratic republic. Thank you all very much.
I'll be brief. My colleague has taken all my time. It sometimes happens in Parliament as well.
I did that for a reason. Madame
Rajavi, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a privilege for me to attend the Free Iran Summit 2024 here in Paris. My name is Sean Paul Phelan. I've been a member of the Chamber of Deputies, the Dáil, in our country, Ireland, for many years, 23 years as a Member of Parliament. I've never been heckled by my son before, but I think he's there somewhere in the crowd. Free Iran. Simple but beautiful words. It is my privilege to be part of the Irish delegation that wishes to do everything that we possibly can as a nation to ensure that Iran becomes free. So many Iranian people that I know that live in my own constituency in exile, often with their children who have never been able to travel home to their own homeland because their parents were involved in the NCRI and other opposition organisations. I cannot imagine what it must be like not to be able to do that. I also want to, in a very particular way, criticise European governments, politicians from all over the world, politicians from Ireland, who have over the last number of years, in particular, tried to deal with the tyrannical regime in Iran. I think it was General Jones yesterday who said that the only way to deal with the regime in Iran is by strength and by outright opposition to their murderous and barbaric coercion of their own people. I also want to, in a particular way, pay tribute to those who we had yesterday who spoke from Iran, who had to disguise their appearance, cover their faces, give their messages to this conference. I want them to know that they're not alone, that we here are listening to them, and not only listening, but we fully support their objectives for a free Iran. I want to, Madam Rajavi, before I finish, thank in a very particular way Mrs. Dowlett, Hussein, Mohammed and Amir, they look after the Irish delegation and have been such an exemplar of everything that is good about Iran. The Iranian people that I have met in my 25 years in public life have all been patient and hospitable. And it is for their efforts that we wish to add our support and live and work to achieve a free Iran. Thank you very much.